Leaders from G7 countries have gathered in the southern Italian resort town of Taormina for this year's annual meeting. The leaders posed for a family photo before sitting down for the first round of talks. They'll discuss international issues including Syria, the DPRK and the global economy. Dealing with terrorism is also high on the agenda. This is the first G7 meeting for US President Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni and British Prime Minister Theresa May. Ahead of the summit, European Council President Donald Tusk said this would be the most challenging meeting in years.
It is no secret that leaders who are meeting today sometimes have very different positions on topics such as climate change and trade. But our role as the EU is to do everything to maintain the unity of the G7 on all fronts.
Well, let's get to you more on the G7 meeting. I'm joined live from Taormina in Italy by our correspondent Mariam Zaidi. Mariam, a number of new faces at the first round table. Just talk us through some of the key highlights of the G7 summit today.
Sure. Well, the G7 summit kicked off with the pomp and ceremony that you would expect from an occasion such as this. Now, there was a welcome ceremony at an ancient Greek theatre, followed by a military plane flyover. But this was never going to be an easy summit owing to global problems such as terrorism, migration, climate change, and the list goes on. Now, the first two working sessions, one was over lunch and one just after, focused on foreign policy and global security. Now, just over an hour ago, G7 leaders signed off on a declaration on terrorism. Now, it showed strong support for the UK following the terrorist attack in Manchester. The Italian Prime Minister said it showed unity, commitment and determination to strengthen the fight against terrorism, and that it also showed friendship with the United Kingdom. Now, Theresa May said it was important that leaders use all tools available to fight terrorists and protect people. May was expected to also push leaders to agree on stricter controls for extremist content published online and to fight radicalisation on the web. Service providers and companies such as Google and Amazon will have pressure applied to them to remove harmful online content. Now, the Italian Prime Minister, speaking after that roundtable, said that leaders had reached agreement on Syria, Libya and North Korea. Now, we know that the Japanese Prime Minister had also been pushing to find solutions on North Korea, and that the US President Donald Trump, speaking earlier on in the day, did call North Korea a big problem that needed sorting.
And indeed, as you mentioned, it's a long list of global issues that need attention. But are we seeing some priority areas emerge so far?
Sure. Well, in the last session, the last session of the day was scheduled to be on the global economy and sustainable growth. Now, listening to what the Italian Prime Minister did say following the leaders' roundtable, not really much came out of the meeting, especially on trade, which is not surprising given that Donald Trump has a protectionist agenda of America first. Now, did that play a part? Well, we'll have to really, wait and see. But the bigger item on the agenda today was climate change. Now, all leaders wanted to know if Donald Trump would reaffirm the USA's commitment to the Paris Climate Change Agreement to cut greenhouse gas emissions or not. Now, the Trump administration had been pushing back on calls to endorse that Paris Agreement. US officials ahead of the summit said that he was still deciding if the US would leave that agreement or not, and that was pretty much what happened, it seemed, today. Now, on climate change, everyone, it seemed, agreed but the United States President. The USA will now discuss this internally, so there is the hope that maybe something could happen and that the US could come on board, but we'll have to wait and see on that. In the meantime, there is a big protest planned tomorrow afternoon. It's an anti-globalization protest to give voice to the world disenfranchised, and we'll keep you updated on that.
Well, thanks very much. Mariam Zaidi, live for us there in Taormina, Italy.